I will. Hey, hey, hey. How's everyone doing? So good to have you guys here. I'm here with my good friends, Nick Blevins and Kevin Monahan. Why don't you guys say hello to everybody?
Yes.
Hey, Kevin's
Hey,
fixing his
everybody. It's
hair.
so good to be here, man. Yeah, yeah,
What?
man. You always have to do that. When you start the webcam, you got to make sure that everything. I'm just
Just,
grateful I got it by this age. So,
true, true. Kevin, why don't you kick us off? Tell us about yourself as we get rolling with Multiply Ministry Conference.
yeah, great, man. Hey, my name's Kevin Monahan, and I get the privilege of serving as an executive pastor here in Orlando, Florida. And it's great, man. It's great to be here. I'm also get the opportunity to teach next gen ministry at Liberty University online and work with internships and residencies and stuff like that. So it's been really great.
That's
So I'm
All
awesome.
doing.
right.
Yeah, good to have
Well,
you on
Great to be
the
here.
webcast with us, Kevin. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Kenny Conley, 25-year veteran of kids ministry and family ministry. I stepped down from my full time role after about 25 years of ministry a year ago, a little over a year ago, and I currently work for Slingshot, help churches find incredible staff in kids and student ministry roles. And I'm actually currently I've been a volunteer for the last 7 or 8 months at the church I attend here in Blairsville, Georgia, and then just recently stepped in as an interim kids director. So I'm helping them find their next kids director and leading in the process. So love doing that. And the three of us here, we founded Ministry Boost about 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
do a lot of Ministry Boost stuff on the side, working with leaders, connecting with leaders, helping train, equip, resource. So love it.
Has it been 5 years, man? That's great, man. I just think of all the
5 years.
great conversations and people, man, we've been able to meet with. So that's awesome. It's
yep,
Yeah.
great.
5 years. It's gone by fast and long at the same time, right? Like we've aged a lot in five
Yeah.
years, and I still remember it like it was
Lots
yesterday when we
happened.
kicked it off. Well, I'm Nick Blevins.
Yeah.
I serve as Next Gen Pastor and lead our operations staff at Community Christian Church north of Baltimore, Maryland. I also do some work with Slingshot, helping churches hire student and kids pastors as well. And then, of course, we do Ministry Boost, where we help church leaders grow their ministries, recruit volunteers. I feel like recruiting volunteers has become like the main thing, but there's also
Yep.
plenty of other things that we get to do. And we love doing things like this, like free live events online where we get to chat with and help so many leaders hear some of the great voices we're going to hear from today. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
we're gonna be together today for about 2.5 hours. So we got a lot of time to get to know each other, to share some resources and some opportunities coming up. But we're just gonna dive right in. We're so excited. This is our second time to host the Multiply Ministry Conference. We hosted it for the first time in 2021. Had a blast. We're so excited to be back at it again. Got over 1,000 people registered for this event. We're so excited about, and that represents even more people who are attending or viewing that are registered all together as one staff. So we're so excited about all the people, but we're going to dive right in, and we're so grateful. We're going to start off first by just inviting one of our a friend of Ministry Boost to come join us. We have several different organizations that have partnered with us to help put on this event, and so we want to start first by introducing our friends from Clearstream. So let's go ahead and continue the conversation. Nick is the resident Clearstream ministry expert. He's written about it countless times on his blog. So Nick, why don't you introduce our friend and we talk a little bit about what Clearstream offers for churches.
Absolutely. Hey, Emily, welcome. Emily works for Clearstream. Emily, you could tell us about what your role is there and what is Clearstream for people that maybe never even heard of it.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me on, first of all. So, what is Clearstream? Clearstream's a texting and email software specifically built for churches. So, if you are thinking about doing texting or want to do texting at your church, Clearstream is a tool that you can use to do that. I'm on our customer success team. So, most of my role includes just talking to churches about how they can use texting, answering questions from our current customers, doing some things like this, live events. We host our own webinars every 2 or 3 weeks, just kind of demoing the platform and showing how it can work.
That's great. Yes, we use Clearstream at my church. We use it a number of different ways. But before maybe I even talk about how we do that, what are some of the like normal features? Because I continue to run into ministry leaders who aren't like their church isn't using a solution at all. Because I feel like there's
Okay.
two camps. Like my church is used 2 or 3 different things before we landed on Clearstream. And so we switched for just because we felt like the Clearstream was a better product. But I still run into church leaders who don't use any type of mass texting solution. So what are some of the things you can do with Clearstream?
Okay, yeah. Well, you just mentioned a perfect one right there, mass texting. So I also talk to a lot of church leaders that are doing quite a bit of mass texting from their personal phone, which takes so much time. You're putting your personal phone number out there. Clearstream lets you mass text your church from within your Clearstream account. People can still reply back, have personal one-on-one conversations with you as ministry leaders, but it all happens in a designated place. It can be shared by multiple volunteers. So definitely just mass texting and fielding questions that, trickle in from the mass text that you send, whether it's an announcement, people reply back with questions, or whatever type of communication you're sending. That's definitely the most common way.
Mm-hmm.
Another way is first time guest follow up, whether that's for student ministries like yourselves, student leaders, or for your main church. We offer unlimited keywords with every plan. So, keyword is like text connect to this number to
Mm-hmm.
get started or get connected. People can get a digital connect card back, fill out their info very easily, very quickly, straight from their mobile phone, and then be entered into a follow up series. So, a lot of churches will use Clearstream for that. Um, and then another way, just real quick, is for prayer. That's definitely a very common way we see churches
Yeah.
and youth ministries using Clearstream. You can set up a designated 10-digit number for prayer. People can text in their requests anytime. Your team can receive those. Again, handle them personally, have a one-on-one conversation, all within your Clearstream account.
That's great. I know, like, I mean, we use that as you're talking through them. Like, we use it at least 5 ways because we do mass texting, like not a lot, but if it's like, hey, remember to RSVP for Christmas services, like something that's big. In student ministry, we do use it like a big reminder system. Student ministry has a different schedule. Parents are busy. I mean, so it's like, this event tonight, or, last chance to register for the fall retreat. Like, we definitely use it like a reminder system there. We do use it for new first time guests. I was telling Emily
Nice.
before that because I have the app and I help with some of our volunteer recruiting stuff, I will see replies that people send back as part of our new guest follow up. They're not coming from me, but I see the replies, which is fun because people are talking about their experience and what they liked and all of that. We use it for volunteer recruiting and just like getting people in our process for that and coming to an orientation and some things like that. And so, but one of the other things we did a 52 challenge where it was every week there was a different Bible verse they would send you and you'd read it and pray for it, and you could subscribe.
Awesome.
And it was a big workflow. So like once they subscribe, they could subscribe anytime, and you could get those texts once a week, which was a lot of fun. How about this? Because this is another thing that some people might care about, integrating with like your church management system. You do that in a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
Which ones
we have integrations with Planning Center, Rock RMS, and CCB, formerly known as CCB, now PushPay. So we're integrated with those three. Super awesome integrations. In a nutshell, what they allow you to do is just sync all of your existing lists in your church management software directly into Clearstream. So if you've already done the work and put the time in to organize your list, you have different groups of people, you can just sync those right in, start texting people immediately. In addition to that, it's a two-way integration. So you can sync info from the software, your management software, to Clearstream, but you can also collect new info via text in Clearstream and push that to your management software to create new profiles. So it can really take a lot of time off of your team's hands for having to do like manual data entry. People can just text in, fill out a connect card, and it will create a profile for them in your management software.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
this is a really big deal. And the reality is, and these stats are probably even more outdated, but it's something like less than 20% of emails are read, but more than 90% of text are read. So the reality is, if you're doing ministry today, if you're not using text, then you're really missing so much. And it really needs to become an integrated strategy into how you connect with your people. So, and that's great. And Clearstream's a kind of a full featured product. So I remember when I first started getting into this 5 or 6 years ago, I used one tech service for one feature and another tech service for another feature is really clunky. And having something like Clearstream where it's kind of all under one hood is really, really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome to hear.
awesome.
And it's nice that it's specifically built for churches. So you can kind of know the software is not going to be bloated with a bunch of marketing features. It's not a business texting solution. It is a true church texting solution.
Cool. Well, how can people find out more? Clearstream.io is the
Yeah.
website, right? And if they download our conference guide, there's a page in there about it if they want to see some of those features and things like that. So check
Cool.
it
Yeah,
out. If
the
you're
best way to reach us is the website, clearstream.io. We actually have a live chat on our website. No robots or AI on the other end of that. It's actually our support team. We're very quick to answer questions. So head over there and ask any questions you'd like.
awesome. It's not run by Chat GPT. It's
No.
real people there. Real people there. All right,
Yeah.
cool.
That's
Emily,
awesome.
thanks so much for helping partner with us on Multiply Ministry,
Yeah.
and thanks for what you
Thanks,
do at
guys.
Clearstream.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of
See
the
ya.
conference.
Mhm,
Bye.
thank you. This is what I love about what we're doing with Multiply Ministry is that many of the people that have come alongside to support us, they're not just funding this event, but they're ministry partners. They offer resources that are helpful and useful, and they believe in the work that you're doing. So that's great. Well, we're gonna jump right into our first session, and super excited about this. This guest of ours is actually a good friend of both Nick and I. I love this guy a lot. He's a mentor to me. He actually was a mentor from afar for many years, and then when I met him, he kind of felt like he adopted me like a spiritual son. So I love Jim Weidman. He's the funniest Southern guy I know, and a mountain of wisdom. So we're actually gonna have a conversation today. And Jim, so good to have you back again. You were with us 2 years ago when we launched.
It is so fun. Y'all just keep asking me back. And, it is such an honor and privilege.
Well, you always have good things to say. I remember even the last one. I mean, I feel like I've learned everything I could learn from you, and you still show up with new nuggets of truth and information, and sometimes just random knowledge that I didn't know I needed to know. And you always help me out there.
Yes,
Well,
we
you
did
learn
learn about a
something
new
every-
breed of dog from Jim yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I turned them on to Catahoulas, and it's kind of fun. But, the thing of it is, you learn something every day if you want to, and I want to. And I've never found anybody I couldn't learn from. And somebody that just started ministry last week, they know something I don't. And I want to know what they know, especially if they're younger, because it's a different world, kids. I've been doing this in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and knocking on the door of the other one. And it is a different world. We were talking about some of the things I can't believe that folks are not sure about these days. And, it's just bizarre to me, the world that we live in. But the great news is that God's word's true with every generation, with every group of kids. His word not only shows us how to live, but his word shows us how to do ministry, even recruiting. And, that's what we're going to talk about today is what the word says about volunteers. And one of the questions I'm asked on a regular basis is, Jim, you've been doing ministry almost 50 years. And what's the one thing, your takeaway from working with volunteers? Well, that's real easy. People need to be needed more than I need the help. A lot of people, the reason you signed up for this conference is because recruiting is one of the hardest things you do, but yet it's people business. It's not just ministry business. There are people who need to be needed, and folks' lives have been changed because you've invited them to make a difference in a child or a student's life. And it's just the coolest thing in the world. We don't use people to build our church. We build people by using the church. And one of the greatest ways I know to disciple folks is to invite them to be a part of ministry. And so I'm going to talk about some things from a book I wrote over 20 years ago, Volunteers that Stick. It's out of print, and but you can get it in PDF form on my website at jimweidman.com. But I love this because the first thing I want you to understand is God's promised he'll meet all your needs. You say, Jim, I know Philippians Philippians 4:19 by heart. But did you know that one of your needs is your people's needs? And so rather than freak out in your own strength, no, God promised, just like he would forgive your sins, just like he'd heal your diseases, just like he'd help you with your finances and all these other things. His word says he's an ever-present help in times of trouble. Also, he'll meet your people needs. And I've seen the Lord move people halfway across the United States just to help in my ministry. I've seen folks get born again and their life changed just so they could teach a class on Wednesday nights. And it's amazing to see how God will supply all your needs. But the question is, do you trust him and do you believe him to do it? How much have you even just thanked him that he's already promised he'd meet your needs? And so when you walk around, who is he pointing out to you? The second thing that I want you to know is 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. Every believer can do ministry in some shape or form. Now, I found people, it takes a little longer to figure out what they can do than other folks, but everybody can help. 1 Peter 2:9 says, but you're a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Now, if believers are priests, what do priests do? Priests do the work of the ministry. And so there you see it. Also, let's look at another verse, Ephesians 4:11 and 12. It was he, talking about Jesus, who gave some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, some to be pastors and teachers, to prepare God's people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. God's people are to do the work of the ministry, and God's people is even little people, high school people, middle school people, not just adults can do ministry. And I try to get kids involved in ministry because, train up a child in the way they should go, rather than just watch and then one day get in the youth group and start serving. I want them to start serving now at a young age. And so, it's important that we realize that people can help. Again, the third thing that I want you to see and all these things is God has given gifts to men. In Ephesians 4, Jesus gave gifts to men when he ascended into heaven, the Bible says. And, again, I believe that Next Gen Ministry is all about helping people discover their gifts and gift sets. And again, I want to see that in the Bible, Jim. Well, good. Open your Bibles to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 28 through 30. And I want you to see that everybody can help in one way or another. Look at verse 28. It says, and in the church, God has appointed first of all apostles, second prophets, then third teachers, then workers of miracles, also those having gifts of healing, those able to help others, those with gifts of administration, and those speaking in different kinds of tongues. Now, we're going to answer some questions out loud starting in verse 29, and I want you to just go ahead and answer. I know you might be in a crowd somewhere, but go ahead and answer. Are all apostles? No. Are all prophets? No. Are all teachers? No. Do all work miracles? No. Do all have gifts of healing? No. Do all speak in tongues? And the Baptist said, no. Do all interpret? No. But eagerly desire the greater gifts. Now I'll show you the most excellent way. Now, have you ever been reading this? And I was reading it one day and I said, Lord, I don't understand this. The answer is all no. And I started, and the Lord just kind of said, go back and just check off everything in verse 29 and see if there was anything left out in verse 28. And as I did, I found there were two things listed in verse 28 that weren't listed in verse 29. Now, if all 29, the answer is no, was the reason these two were left out is the answer is yes. And so what two are they? Helps of an administration. So that lets me know everybody can help somebody. You might not get certain people to teach a class. You might not get them to do particular skills like running sound or doing something on a computer. I know a lot of old people don't volunteer to work on computer stuff, but they can rock babies and they can fix snacks. There's different things that everybody can do and all can help. And it doesn't matter what you do in the ministry. If you don't come on time, if you're not organized, if you don't come prepared, you're not going to be able to do a good job. And so it's important that we understand that you can learn administration, you can be organized, you can do it the right way, and you can help. Number 4 is this. All believers make up the body of Christ, and they each have a particular function. I'm at the point in my life where the last 2 years I have been on a wonderful journey of getting healthy, and I've just seen the faithfulness of God. And this morning, I was under attack with a nosebleed and thought I wasn't going to get to teach. And thank God we got it. That stopped before I went on. Y'all really wouldn't want to see that, or maybe some of you would. But that's sick. That's just sick. But anyway, I want you to see, I've found out when body parts don't do what they're supposed to do, all of a sudden, it's just not fun. And I have found that helping people find the thing that Jesus created them to do and meet that need in the local church and with kids has been one of the most positive and most rewarding and most wonderful things that we can do. There's all ages that are helping in my ministry. There's folks with different skill. There's folks, we have a new children's pastor at my church, somebody that I coach that I was so thrilled that I got to bring them on to work with me and help me. And we had a leader meeting the other night, and we said how we were giving out gift cards to the person that has helped the longest. And it blessed my heart that our church is 13 years old, and we had several people that had been serving in kids all 13 years. And again, when people find the part of the body that Jesus created them to be, and they're not going to quit. That's another question I get on a regular basis. How do you get people to to not stop serving? And that's real simple. Find the place God created them to be. And it's so life-giving and meeting such a need in their life, they're going to continue to do that part. And, one of the things that I have started doing that I wish I'd done years ago is I work longer on finding that place and that part. I don't make any permanent placement with a volunteer until at least after 30 days. I assign them to another worker. I let them watch, ask questions. We get back together and have an extra interview, and we just say, are you happy with this? Is there something else you want to try or anything before we make this placement? And sometimes they'll try another ministry and they'll try that, and we'll take sometimes 90, 120 days. But when they say, yes, this is where I want to serve, I found they commit to it. And they've tried some other things and done some other things. And again, I've heard about people that fall in love at first sight, but I don't know anybody that got married at first sight. And really, when we're asking for a commitment to serve, it's okay for us to date as volunteers before we get married. And so that's one of the things that I've found trying to find that. And so, the thing that's important is the plan of God includes people. Jesus equips those he calls. And one of the truths that I've also learned from reading my Bible is the law of mutual benefit. God says, if you do this, I'll do this. And I've found that inviting volunteers to serve is not only a blessing to individuals, but it's also a blessing to the entire church. But it also opens up rewards for your volunteers. Now, I've been a professional children's and youth guy for a long time. And I could tell you story after story about how Jesus brought folks into my kid's life and my grand's life to bless them. My daughter Yancey is going to be teaching later here on the conference. And it just blows me away how God sends people into her life to be a blessing to her and open up doors, and things are just a little easier for her. Why? Because mom and dad has spent almost 50 years helping other people's kids, and Jesus has sent people into my kids' life to help them. Why? Because the Bible's true. You reap what you sow. And, that's a prayer I pray over my volunteers for their children. I pray that over my children. I pray that over my sons-in-law. I pray that over my grands. My wife, every day before we get out of bed, she says, Lord, I thank you for sending Jim good help today, because he's been good help, because you reap what you sow. And this is what I want you to see. You can trust God's word. You can trust God's word. And when you do the things God's word tells you to do, especially in the area of volunteers, and again, it always works. And he's going to bless his work. Amen. Guys, come on back.
Yeah. Jim, I love that. You're always have so much good practical help and things like that, but you also, like, your love for the word and the foundation that it is for everything that we do, including strategies in ministry, is such a blessing. I want to add to something you said, or reinforce something that you said, because I do think this is for those that are here that are newer in ministry. This might be a new mindset of this thought. Like, a lot of us came into ministry because we've got a heart for kids or a heart for teenagers or whatever it may be. But it doesn't take very long to all of a sudden figure out that our real ministry that God called us to isn't to those kids and those teenagers. It's to the people who attend our church, who will invest in kids and teenagers. And it really does become like, I invest my time and my energy and love into a team of adults and teenagers who invest in kids in the next generation. And when we figure that out, that it's not about the coolest trick or way to tell the Bible story, it's really just about loving people and inviting people to a community of love and purpose, then you'll never have a need, because it's magnetic, it's electric. People want to be a part of something that's community, and that they feel like they're making a difference. And I think you pointed to what that looks like, and we can all be reminded of that. Like, we always got spots to fill, but it's not about just filling the spots. It's about inviting people to be something bigger than they would on their own, and inviting them to that. So, Jim, thanks so much. That was amazing.
Yeah, there's no fruit that remains unless you invite people to do ministry. And again, Jesus had an earthly ministry for 3 years, but his real ministry is what he's been doing the last 2,000, sitting at the right hand of God, making intercession for the saints. And if he hadn't, first thing he did when he came out of the desert after being tempted to the devil, he went and recruited help. Now, if Jesus needed help, we need truckloads of it. And again, he was the original body of Christ. He had every part. Think about that one. It says he had the Spirit of God without measure, but yet he recruited help. And we've got to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Kenny, can we hit one question here at least from the chat?
Yeah.
Tom Bump asked, what has been something you learned?
Tommy,
You know Tom.
What are you doing?
Know Tom. We know Tom.
Yeah,
what is
Tom's
you've
been doing illegal signs in the background. Michigan fan.
That's true. He is a Michigan fan. If you're not a college football guy, you might not know what we're talking about there. But Jim throwing shots at him. Kenny has no idea what we're talking about. He has no clue what's going on in college football. What's something you learned since the pandemic? It is different. Somebody else commented too. Like it seems like people won't commit.
First thing I learned is anybody that thinks it's going to go back to how it was is stupid. Because the world has moved on and our ministry shouldn't look the same. Everybody wants it to go back to normal, but this world is not normal. If they can't figure out what bathroom to use at Target, there's some other things that we need to be working on. And what scares me about the pandemic is that most people didn't learn at least 5 things they would do different if another pandemic happened. They'd go back to doing what they just did. And that's a workshop I want to teach sometime, is 5 things that I would do if if the world shuts down again, to keep my, because last year during the pandemic, I recruited new workers, came up with some great ideas, and it was the best thing that happened to our children's ministry. There was a closeness and a togetherness and a team building that we started doing. We were sending out Pizza Hut gift cards and different pizza things and having Zoom pizza parties with workers. And we kept caring for workers and caring for kids and taking boxes to folks. And our team was more solidified because of the shutdown, that decimated after the shutdown. And so the first thing is, don't think it'll ever be normal. And I think ministry ought to look normal. I don't need as many workers as I used to. And some of the things that, the main thing I need, small group leaders. And then I've made an adjustment on other things because of the pandemic. But, the next thing is, what'd you learn from it? And most people hadn't learned anything.
That's good stuff. Because the things you would do, you do now. Even if it doesn't shut down, we should be doing these things, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now, that's something we do all the time. And it's just amazing that, because the world's changed. The world has changed. And anybody, Brittany, y'all going to be talking to Brittany Nelson. Her book is my favorite new children's ministry book that I didn't write right now, because if you think computers and apps and all this technology is going away, you need to wake up and smell the millennium. And it is time to look at ways that we can do more with social media than just remind people of activities at the church. I believe you can disciple kids with social media if you're intentional about it. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
Great new book.
It is a great new book. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. So everybody's got to come back.
Oh, good.
Brittany
good.
will get to share about it. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking time to join us, battling through.
It's sorry for the blood stop in my nostril, but that was better than that's better than the blood on my shirt that was there prior. But
you're just fighting through. You're a soldier. We appreciate it. Well,
I'm not gonna quit. I'm not gonna quit.
You shouldn't.
I might get kicked out, but I'm not gonna quit.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's right.
Well, thank you,
Well,
brother
Jim, we
Jim.
love you. Thank you so much for being with us
Love
today.
you.
Thanks for
I'm fixing
all
to
that you
hit the
shared with
road
us.
and go speak at a conference. Heading up to North Carolina and speaking at another conference. And I had done a webinar since yesterday. So this was, I just love what y'all are doing. Ministry Boost is such a blessing to so many people. And I stole one of your ideas, my serve tour. It's just crazy how all these folks are signing up for the serve tour. And we're just first and third Sundays of every month, 11 o'clock. Come take the tour, baby. And it's kind of exciting. And I got that idea from y'all at
Thanks
a
for that plug.
Ministry Boost conference. That's what I'm talking about. Pay the money and join the little thing because you get all kind of stuff. And it's crazy what you get if you'll just log on and take advantage of it. I'm highly selective whose ideas I rip off, and y'all got great ideas. I like to rip them off, so that's good.
That's right. Awesome, Jim. Thanks so much. We'll
love
y'all.
See
you again soon. Okay.
See you soon. All right. Love y'all. Bye-bye.
That's great.
What's
Jim's the
up?
best. If you don't know Jim, like he's amazing, and he's always going to tell you exactly what he's thinking, which we need more of that in our lives, and it was just so much wisdom there. Literally like 4 decades of going on 5 decades of family ministry, children's ministry. He's a legend. He's a guru, and he referenced his favorite new book that's out right now is Brittany Nelson. Her book is It's Time to Update, and she talks about the utilizing technology, leveraging technology in your ministry. And we're going to be interviewing her tomorrow in one of our main sessions. So super good. Well, exciting. What's coming up next, fellas?
We got another friend to bring on in a moment. Kevin, any takeaways there? I got to unmute Kevin. I think that's my fault. Or no, Kevin's got to unmute himself.
Nope, I got you. I think one of the things I'm really excited about this whole conference thing too is just the plurality of ages. You know, I mean, seeing somebody who's been doing this for 40 years and seeing how it's changed and all stuff, and just hearing from Jim, I mean, he's not speaking out of like a theory or something. He's speaking out of somebody who's made that happen. And like he said, you know, he's made mistakes and things he wish he did different. We all have those regrets, but to just kind of like keep going on and changing. And it's good to hear someone from his seat in the bus saying like, you gotta be fluid, man. You got to change. And ministry looks different and post COVID and all that stuff. And so it's really good to see someone like Jim. And I'm excited about even our next guy is a little bit of a younger leader to come in and give us some wisdom and a great guy. So the whole like different opinions and experiences across the ministry spectrum is awesome to see. So it's going to be cool.
I would say, to echo what you said, because Jim is always learning, he's always changing, he's always, and that's one thing. I did 2 years of mentoring with Jim where I kind of sat and learned from him. And one of the things he taught me every time I had a phone call with him, there was an expectation that when I showed up on that phone call, I always had a question to ask him. And he kind of taught me, like, anytime I'm meeting with anyone, whether they're a mentor of mine or a peer, like, am I coming prepared with what information do I need? And to have, the older guy in ministry challenging us younger guys to keep learning. And you never know who has the answer to the question that you have. And I think that's great. I think something we can all learn from that. And I'm really excited about our next guest as well, because Jim was a mentor of mine, and this next guest is actually a friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. We were on staff together. I was actually his boss for a few years. He'll tell you in a few minutes. I was one of the best bosses he ever had. But this is my friend Shane Sanchez. He is an amazing youth pastor. Amazing. Actually, one of the things I love about Shane, he's I don't know if this is the right word to describe him. He's a futurist. Like, he's always looking 10, 15 years down the road of like where things are headed, where teenagers are headed, where ministry to them are headed. And so he's brilliant. He's brilliant in the world of student ministry. You've probably If you've had any connection with Orange, you probably, and especially in the student ministry spaces,
Yep.
you've heard of him. You know the work that he's doing. He's been behind XP3 curriculum with content, and he just put out a book last year,
Yep.
a devotional for students. So, Shane Sanchez,
Welcome.
welcome to the show.
What's up, y'all? Thanks for
Hey,
having me.
it's good to see you.
Yeah,
I gotta
it,
plug Shane really quick because one of my I texted him earlier this year because I had an academic paper and they referenced Shane like 3 times in it, in what he's doing and something from a blog and all of that stuff. And it's so good because you are such an intentional and futuristic leader. So thanks for being here today, man. Glad to have you.
thanks so much for having me. Yeah, that was a weird moment. I still
Yeah,
not really sure if you passed them on that paper or not, but
I did.
we could talk
Well,
about that
they've
later.
mentioned Kenny before too, and that's
Okay, good,
straight to the F
good.
pile.
Yeah, Kenny, I was gonna say, it's hard to follow Jim Weidman, especially I know
Yeah.
you mentored under him, or he mentored you for a while, and I was force mentored by Kenny, meaning that I didn't have a choice. He was my boss, so it was
Yeah.
either be mentored by him or get a new job. So
Mhm.
no, but I'm
That's true.
grateful for it. I am grateful for it.
Well, Shane, tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now, and
Yeah.
then we'll let you kick off your session.
Great. Yeah. Kenny, as you mentioned, I've been involved in youth ministry in both volunteer and vocational roles for about 15 years now, which is it's
Wow.
still baffling to me. Started when I was 12. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But been doing that. Served as a youth pastor for years, and now I work at Orange. We're an organization. We're all over the world, but we're located in the Atlanta area. I'm the director of project strategy on our Orange students team. So we create a curriculum, but we also create a bunch of additional resources, tools for
That's
youth
great.
ministry students, everything in between, and I'm leading the charge on those things. So yeah,
That's
Very
awesome.
cool.
Well, Shane, I'm excited about what you're going to share about because you're going to take
Yeah.
a really interesting viewpoint of volunteers and teenagers, and so we're going to pass it off to you and let you dive in and lead us for the next little bit.
It's gonna
cool.
be great.
Sounds good. All right, leaders, thanks so much for joining. Over the next few minutes, what I would love to do is to show you how your greatest opportunity to inspire and invest in volunteers might be right under your nose, and you may not even know it yet. But first, before we get into any of that, let's talk about the apocalypse for a moment, which I get that feels like a pretty hard left turn, but just hang with me for a second, okay? The truth is that over the last few years, we have all experienced an apocalypse in the truest sense of what that word actually means. See, the Greek word apocalypse, it literally means an uncovering or a revelation. And over the past few years, whether it's through the pandemic or socio-political situations we've been facing, or even the emerging decline of engagement within the American church, I think we've all had this realization that some of our flaws, our faults, and the realities of what we're dealing with week in and week out have become uncovered. And look, I know I don't have to tell you that because you're in the trenches. You're experiencing that week after week, day after day. But here's what was interesting to me as a youth pastor, after having conversations with students and some of my volunteers, even other ministry leaders in the space, it was quickly revealed to me that the version of church that we were creating for teenagers on a weekly basis, it wasn't getting the results that we were after. See, what I realized during the apocalypse of the last few years is that when we removed the program from students' lives, they didn't know what to do with their faith. I'll never forget a conversation with a student who was bought in, loved the youth ministry, all of those things, and then they said as soon as Sunday was gone, they had no idea what to do when it came to following Jesus. I also remember running into a student during all this time who told me that she had stopped coming to church because she had questions and she wasn't confident that she would find the answers at church. And I think we all know the statistics of middle school and high school students that are disengaging from the church. They're increasing, and that gap after high school, it doesn't seem to be decreasing either. And that's been something we've had to grapple with face to face over the last few years. Here's why I'm telling you all this. The reality is that something in the way that we have been doing things does not seem to be working. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the experiences that we're creating for teenagers, they don't seem to be taking root, or at least taking root in the way that we imagined they would. Over the last few years, here's what I came to discover: that our youth ministry experiences, the ones that we're creating for students, they are not equal to a student's experience of personal ministry. Here's what I mean by that. What I mean is that we're putting our time, our energy, our resources, our dollars, all of those things into creating incredible experiences that a teenager can show up to, right? I mean, we have sick music, we have preaching, we have small group conversations, all the stuff that we hope teenagers will enjoy as they're experiencing it. But for many, few years, even more so, the experiences that we created, they could not come anywhere near to the impact of a student experiencing ministry for themselves, them actually being involved in personal ministry. And what I mean by that is actually ministering to other people. And yes, this was revealed in a really radical way over the last few years, but I think we all know this to be true. I think we know that faith is built by action, which is why ministry is better experienced than explained. See, we can talk to students about the Bible, we can talk to them about the way of Jesus and what Christianity is about. We can talk about those things all day long, but that will never compare to them experiencing what it means to truly live out the way of Jesus. I think that might be why Jesus invited 12 guys, some of them even potentially teenagers, to walk alongside him and to do what he said is best, not to just believe it or hear about it, but to actually put it into action. And if this is true, then I have a question for all of us. If this is true, then why are we so comfortable with students just simply being connected to the church as consumers? Why are we okay just doing the work of creating experiences for students to attend instead of creating ways for them to experience personal ministry? Why is it that we sometimes struggle to see middle school and high school students as viable contributors to the overall ministry of the church? Why, after all of the last few years and everything that's been revealed to us, have so many of us just went back to doing youth ministry the way it was always done? Or maybe it's we've went back to recruiting the same demographic of kids ministry volunteers that we've always aimed for at the exclusion of students. What if we could expand our view of middle school and high school students to see them as contributors to the local church, not just consumers? Look, I would go as far as to suggest that one of the best solutions to the volunteer crisis that so many churches are facing, and one of the best solutions to the post high school faith crisis, is inspiring students to serve. See, personal ministry helps students build a more resilient faith. I mean, just think about the power of an aha moment in your own life, and imagine what that could be like in the life of a student. I mean, we can talk about things like kindness, love, peace, integrity, all of these good things that I believe God wants us to have our lives full of. But when a student steps into the position of serving others, when they begin contributing to something bigger than themselves, when they begin to see a kid who they're investing in, that kid's life impacted by the good news of the gospel, it's in those moments that students will see for themselves just how this whole faith thing is actually supposed to work. It's that aha moment that could begin to catalyze what it means for them to be a follower of Jesus day in and day out. This is the difference between simply telling students about the way of Jesus and instead inviting them to follow the way of Jesus by giving of their time, their talent, and their treasures to make this world a better place. Look, if we just try to explain why faith matters to students, and that's something that they can be explained out of in the future. In fact, many of them have been. But if they can experience the impact of, I don't know, something like telling a 4-year-old a Bible story, if they could experience the impact of showing up to an elementary kids soccer game that's in their small group, if they could experience the impact of serving the tangible needs of their community, then then they'll experience how the things that Jesus taught about the way that we're supposed to treat other people, or how to care for those in needs, or how to invest in the lives of kids, how all of that stuff truly does make a difference and lead to a more full life, just like Jesus promised. In fact, this is why the founder of the organization I'm a part of, Reggie Joyner, always says that if you want people to feel significant, you have to give them something significant to do. If we want faith to matter to middle and high school students, then we should give them meaningful ways to experience their faith in action. And that's where you come in as a ministry leader. See, when you inspire students to serve, you not only fill tangible needs, you actually provide an opportunity for spiritual formation. I mean, that's the best part is yes, you will fill the needs that you have. We do have somewhat of a volunteer crisis going on in the church right now. So students can really help solve that problem, but you also get to participate in their spiritual formation. And just to be clear, like this isn't about just free labor either. It's a lot bigger than that. You know that. What I'm suggesting here is that you begin to take students very seriously as a part of the core or maybe even the core of your volunteer teams. The healthiest churches and orgs that I've ever experienced or I've had the chance to interface with and connect with almost always had groups of young people involved in service, whether that is inside or outside of the four walls that ministry calls home. So, I want to give you just a few practical ways that you can begin to apply this type of thinking to your context. First, I want to speak to those of you that are leading in kids ministry context. If you want to begin to inspire students to serve within your context, the first step I think you can take is to see serving as a part of a student's spiritual formation. Look, you might be in kids ministry, but I'm here to tell you you're also in student ministry. Your job as a kids ministry leader is to invest in the spiritual lives of your volunteers, and some of your volunteers should be students. So, what would it look like if you chose to work with your youth ministry counterparts to come up with things like great training or standards or even formational rhythms for your student volunteers? If the youth ministry is talking about serving, this is just an example. What if you were to show up in the space and not just provide the ways that students can serve in the ministry, but show up as a presence of telling them by your actions just how important service is in their spiritual formation journey? If the youth ministry happens to be focusing on some specific themes or topics, what if you could find ways to leverage those things in your training to volunteer? To your volunteers in order to help form a student's faith holistically, not just in the youth ministry, but also in the way they're being trained to volunteer and to equip younger kids or wherever they may serve on those very same principles and truths. That's the first step. The second step that I would give you as a kids ministry leader is to give phase appropriate responsibility. There's this concept that Fuller Youth Institute came up with a few years ago called keychain leadership. It's this idea of actually giving students that type of responsibility, handing them the keys, giving them the ownership of the ministry that they're a part of, and the impact that has on helping them create a lasting faith. But here's what's important when it comes to this. Yes, we should be keychain leaders, but we don't throw the keys to the Ferrari to a student who's not ready, right? I mean, your responsibility as a kids ministry leader is to care for your volunteers. That includes students, which means you have to be mindful of where and how you utilize them. Don't throw them into roles without proper supervision or training. If something should be an adult's responsibility, do not give that responsibility to a student. If you do that, you're setting them up and yourself up for failure and even a loss of trust with that student or that student's parents or guardians. So be mindful of that and give them phase appropriate responsibility. And then the third step that I would give you as a kids ministry leader, if you're looking to inspire students to serve, is to give them additional mentors as they're serving in your ministry. One of the best things for a student's faith that I witnessed personally as a youth pastor was a strong adult co-leader wherever they were serving. It wasn't just their small group leaders in the youth ministry. It just wasn't our team. It was actually the co-leaders that they had in kids ministry spaces. In fact, research shows this again from Fuller Youth Institute that five key adults are critical for a student remaining connected to their faith after high school. You can provide some of those five adults. And of course, you need to have thorough supervision. That's really important. And it's important for you to intentionally find ways for the adult volunteers on your team to also mentor the students on your team. Think about this as a coaching model, or maybe there's co-leaders or captains, whatever that may look like in your context. If you're a kids ministry leader, just by placing a caring adult adjacent or connected to your student volunteers can make all the difference in that student's faith formation. Now, And before we wrap up, I also want to talk to those of you that are youth ministry leaders. There's a few steps that I think you can take to begin to inspire students to service as well. The first step, if you're a youth ministry leader, is to have service as a part of your engagement strategy within the youth ministry. We went as far as actually having small group leader goals for service. Yes, this is something that we published and we shared and we talked to our small group leaders about regularly. We had aimed for 35% of our middle school small group rosters to be serving somewhere in the church as a part of service in the community or somewhere else. Once they became underclassmen, 9th and 10th graders, our goal was that 50% of a small group would be engaged in serving. And then an upperclassmen, because of the autonomy they have, the fact that many of them can have a little bit more control of their schedules, we actually upped that to 65%. We wanted to see 65% of every small group roster serving in some way, shape, or form, because we believed that it was not only a part of the engagement strategy, but again, the spiritual formation of a teenager. We had strategic Sundays where we actually point students towards service. We didn't just leave this for the adult room, trying to get students to serve in kids or youth ministry. No, 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 no. We would have these conversations with students and say, hey, there are opportunities all around you in our church and in the community to serve. And this is critical for your own formation and followership of Jesus. And we even made it a next step or even a first step for new students. Before anything else, we'd go, hey, would you want to serve on a team, be a part of this, so they could step into the life of the church and see what discipleship through service really looks like. So one, if you're a youth pastor, I would have service as a part of your engagement strategy. And then two, the second step I would encourage you to take is to don't allow your student leadership to become a monopoly. I think one of the things that I've seen in youth ministry time after time is we provide incredible student leadership opportunities within the context of our ministries, but we do that at the cost of allowing students or creating the space and time for students to be able to serve in other areas of the church. I would say, please don't do that. I think we should have incredible opportunities for students to serve within the youth ministry. I think student leadership can be a really effective and powerful tool, but there's something about the next generation of students investing in their next generation or serving the older generations in the church or finding ways because they have the time to get out in the community and serve. Don't allow student leadership to become a monopoly at the cost of other ways that students can serve within the life of the church. And then third, for youth pastors, if you want to inspire students to serve, I would encourage you to see service as a part of your shepherding students towards spiritual formation. It's actually a part of our role as youth pastors. Jesus taught and modeled service, and we should too. But we have to think beyond our programs, our services, our sermons, our events, into holistic discipleship. And service should be just as big of a priority, whether it's service within the ministry or in our community. It should be just as big of a priority as attendance is when it comes to our programs, our groups, our events, and everything else. And look, if we do this, imagine what would happen. Kids and youth ministry leaders, you're watching this and you're considering ways that you can engage students, but I want you for a second just to use your imagination and begin to wonder what could happen if we started finding solutions to some of the problems of the next generation of church engagement. We started to find some of the solutions to those things revealed because we put students into service. We inspire them to actually get involved in the action of their faith. Imagine what would happen if we took the responsibility of inspiring students to serve personally, each of us individually as leaders. Imagine the students in your church or just in your sphere of influence, whatever role you're in or whatever organization you're a part of. Imagine if those students started finding meaningful experiences of personal ministry within the context in which you lead. Imagine if your volunteer teams were bolstered by middle and high school students who are able to bring an energy and a vibrancy to your ministry that nobody else is able to because they just have this innate hope and desire for a better tomorrow. I think all of this is possible. And I've seen it happen by leaders like you who've made it happen. And I think we need so much more of this for the future of the church if we want to engage the next generation in following Jesus. What if this is something that you and I could uniquely begin to do as we're finding ways to better lead our volunteers? This right here, inspiring students to serve, could begin to change things within the church for multiple generations to come. So my question for you is this: how will you begin to inspire students to serve? what I'd love to do is maybe take, I don't know if we have time for questions or not, but
Yeah, man.
yeah, let's do
Shane,
it.
thank you. I think it's such a great thing what you're talking about, personal ministry and serving. And just looking at some of our questions on YouTube, I think the inspiration and the excitement is there for people. I think some of the logistics are there too. Is,
Mhm.
where do you just start, right? Like, because I think of the student pastor who's already feels overwhelmed about just doing their Wednesday night or their Sunday night and recruiting volunteers for that, and then, man, how do I find different places to go serve? And then how do I get parents on board? Like,
Mhm.
and we've got to vet, are these safe places for people to go? And what I think what can happen is sometimes we can be so excited and it can seem so, overwhelming that we don't know where to start. And so I would love,
Mhm.
like, man, what's that first, maybe one or two baby steps
Yep.
that you would sit there and, like, I've just got a traditional model of a next gen ministry, a Wednesday night, my kids go on Sunday, maybe got some small groups. Where's that first step outside of just inspiring something, so that
Mhm.
we want to inspire them, but we also want to make we also don't want to make a promise or inspire to something that we know we can't facilitate.
That's good.
So in
Yep.
that stuff, where do you think on that? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. That's a great question. I would say there's a couple things that come to mind. One, I think you do need to take the time to build the right systems and processes first. I think that's really key, especially when you're leading volunteer teams. You have to have the right vetting process in place, and that's where I would put the energy before anything else. Before launching this, before getting in front of students and telling them there's opportunities, work within the context of your church, work with whatever staff member or board member that you may have that oversees policies and procedures, and make sure that you've checked all those boxes to build a really good system and process. So I would definitely start there. But the second step I would take is to collaborate with whoever leads kids ministry. And maybe it's not kids ministry, it could be guest services, another area. My heart and my mind just go to kids ministry because I think there's a really great connection that can happen when students are mobilized to serve within kids ministry. But I don't think it's just one person's responsibility. I don't think it's just the youth pastor or it's just the
Right.
kids pastor, director. It's not just their responsibility to do this. I think you have to work together, and you can create really great recruiting strategies. You can create really good onboarding strategies when you work in collaboration. And I know
Yeah.
that feels kind of idealistic, but I've worked in that reality. In fact, Kenny helped transition our church into that reality because we were incredibly siloed. But as soon as we started working together and seeing the bigger picture, I think students wound up benefiting from that in significant ways.
Hey,
Yeah.
Shane, speak to this real quick because I know this. I know this is true that there are some children's ministry leaders who would say teenagers are really messy. They're loud. They're obnoxious. They don't show up. They're sometimes worse than the kids. So I'd rather not have them. Like that's their initial sometimes
Yeah.
because they've been burned by a couple rowdy
Yeah.
ones. But what would you speak into them to see bigger than just the momentary mess that you get when you invite a teenager into your ministry?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, I was actually scrolling through some of the chat that's going on here, and I see some of the stories of leaders who are actually here right now that began
Mhm.
serving when they were teenagers. And I think that may be the greatest testament to the importance of enduring and dealing with the difficult things. And yes, they're messy, and maybe uh, they won't show up for something they're supposed to be at or whatever else. But if you can endure and see the longer game of actually discipling a student and helping them in their journey of spiritual formation, it becomes worth it. And I wouldn't say maybe this is too simplistic, but I'm like, we all need volunteers as well. So it's like
Hmm.
you don't have an adult filling that space. So, what's going to happen if you can't tolerate that student, or you can't muster up the patience to be able to help them develop into the adult you hope they could be someday? I'm like,
Yeah.
I think everybody suffers. You have an empty spot on your team, a kid doesn't have a leader, and then that student doesn't get the opportunity in the midst of their adolescent development and all of those things, doesn't get the opportunity to have some of the responsibility it takes to volunteer within the church or ministry. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. For
Well,
me, those are the reasons where I'm
it's
like, you take the chance.
well, it also sounds what you're saying is start small too. Is,
Hmm.
like, like, let's not get everybody serving, and I mean we wouldn't do that with adults either, right? There's some
Yep.
people I wouldn't some adults I wouldn't trust, like Kenny.
Yes.
And then there's some other but some of these things of just starting small. Maybe it's a smaller group of your student leadership, and then maybe it's,
Yep.
hey, some other kids that you feel are there. Or I think we've used this too, is a lot of times kids that they're there for multiple services. Maybe their parents,
Yep.
serve in another ministry, or talking to parents specifically and like, hey, you're in that ministry. What do you think about your kid helping you with this? Or, and I've seen that in parking. I've seen that in connections, and even tear down and setup, and even some stuff during the week. I know that, like, I think about my three kids. They were with us because Megan and I were on campus a lot and got plugged in serving, and I know our student team did that. And I think if you start small in that and have the goal after a larger goal in mind, after a long time, you'll see some bigger steps. So that's great. It's good stuff.
That's good.
I think I want to add something like a challenge to both kids and student leaders. If you're a kids leader and you think your audience is just little kids, you're wrong. Like,
Right.
students are part of the audience of the next generation that you can influence. And if you're a student leader and you think that your audience is just teenagers of who you impact, you're wrong too. Like, you have an opportunity to give teenagers an opportunity to make an impact on those coming behind them. And
That's good.
Shane, I know, you were just a heathen like 3 years ago, so you don't probably know this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But more than a dozen people responded that they were impacted significantly as a kid. And for me, I was a volunteer as an 11 or 12-year-old in my children's ministry, and my children's pastor, I still remember this moment so clearly. When a little boy came forward to give his heart to Jesus, my children's pastor invited me, like an 11, 12-year-old, to come and kneel at the altar with him and lead this little boy to the Lord. Like, that forever changed me, because somebody saw something in me and empowered me to be used by the Holy Spirit. And maybe that was part of it, what brought me to what I do today. So I think
that's amazing.
I think for a children's ministry leader, I would say, man, 25-30% of your volunteers could and should be teenagers. They should be minors. Partnering with great adults who will mentor them and mentor the kids that they lead. So this was a very appropriate message. We're looking for volunteers, and a lot of them, like you started off with this, they might be right under our nose in our student ministry. Let's do something significant. Really cool. Well, Shane, thanks so much for being with us today. I feel like this is a great word.
Thank y'all.
For all of us. And Shane, tell us a little bit about your devotion. If you are a student leader, or you've got student leaders in your ministry, maybe you're a children's leader, you got teenagers serving your ministry, you just wrote a devotional, this amazing devotional for kids. Tell us real quick about that, and we'll let you go.
Thanks. It's called How to See God. It is a 4-week devotional for students of ways to look for God through the lens of the fruit of the Spirit. So it's looking for the fruit of the Spirit in themselves, in the world around them, and in other people, in really simple, daily, practical ways. Because when they begin to see God at work in those ways, I believe that they'll begin to see God at work in all sorts of ways throughout the rest of their life. So it's called How to See God. You can get it at howtoseegodbook.com, or you can go to Amazon and grab it there too.
That's great. Well, Shane, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you all so much.
We'll see you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Shane. Good to see you.
Right.
That was great. I loved it.
Nick, you're
it is
back.
my story.
Welcome back.
So I'm biased. We have had a preschool volunteer that had to quit / be let go because she didn't want to have teenagers in the room serving there. And part of it was our fault because we hadn't trained those specific teenagers and they probably weren't doing a good job. But once we let her know that, like, that was our fault, we'll fix that. But this is the expectation. And we probably didn't do a good job communicating that at that point either. So there's a lot of things that were our fault. But at the end, it was like, we agree to disagree. We're going to have students serve, and we're going to push that envelope as far as we can. And if you can't get on board with that, we understand. But
and it's a lot of work. And because I think it's like, I know as a children's ministry leader, you need more volunteers, and the idea of bringing teenagers makes it messier, because all of a sudden now you're having to train and hold a high expectation of these teenagers. You're probably needing to lean really heavy into the parents of these teenagers, because you're not texting these teenagers or emailing these teenagers and expecting them to all respond to you. So you're communicating through 3 layers of communication. and then you're trying to partner with a student ministry team that may or may not be super excited about all this as well, but it is worth it. Like it's worth it. You should push into it. You should challenge parents to do that. Raise the bar. Not Don't just let any teenager serve just because they want to serve. Like, call them to something big and important. Expect them to show up. Expect them to come prepared. And if they can't do those things, they don't get to serve. So I think it's okay to build some of those boundaries around the ministry, but I think it's really beautiful.
Hey, I got one thing to add too that I think was really practical, and that is you both mentioned it, is the importance of training. Like, sometimes we just think, hey, we're just going to send that person in there. And I know one of our residents this last year created a whole YouTube channel, a private one, of just training for students. And he borrowed a lot of Ministry Boost stuff. I have a little bit of access to that. So it was like he took some of our stuff and created this whole, like, just with his phone and all stuff, because you've got a generation of high schoolers and middle schools that live on their phone. They watch videos on their phone, they communicate. And like, the trainings were all like a minute. Some of them were just a minute and a half, 2 minutes, answering the question, hey, go see all of these. And it was really great. Hey, you need to go watch these 10 videos in a row and like come back and then maybe answer some questions. I mean, it was minimal in that, but the importance is training. I think sometimes we can look at these things and think, hey, we're just going to throw kids in. And it's like, and we've got to train adults of how to, operate with kids too. But I think raise the bar, train them well, start small. I think those are all really kind of great ideas to run with. So it's good stuff.
I love it. Well, we're going to turn a corner here. We're in about 7 or 8 minutes. We're going to invite our next communicator. We're going to have an interview. I'm super excited about this next guest. But for some of you had asked, because Jim Weidman talked about this tour, and some of you, I think it piqued interest of some people. So we want to talk a little bit about that. That was something that actually Nick Blevins and I were in Nashville about 2 months ago, leading an in-person workshop called that is a volunteer recruiting workshop, and with 70 or 80 leaders from all over Nashville. We do that every now and again. If you ever want us to come and do a workshop in your area, let us know. We'd be open to come and do that. But we shared with him part of our strategy. We shared this 5-part strategy of this framework of recruiting volunteers. We train a lot of ministry leaders. How do you become better at recruiting volunteers? How do you make sure people don't fall through the cracks? And one of these pieces that we really believe in is this idea of a volunteer orientation. And it's not a volunteer orientation in the way of a volunteer comes and they learn everything they need to learn to be a good volunteer. It's actually part of our recruitment process of people come to the orientation. They're still not sure they're going to be a volunteer. And one of the things that we do is we create this wonderful, beautiful, exciting experience where they spend 30 to 45 minutes. Typically, it's a tour of our ministry where we walk through all of our spaces. We introduce them to volunteers. We show them what's happening. We walk them through ministry environments during worship where they get to see kids truly worshiping the Lord. Usually nobody makes it through this tour and says, "Nah, I don't want to do that." Like they come, they experience a tour, and they're like, "I had no idea this is what your youth ministry looks like. I had no idea that kids can worship that way." And that's the point of it. It's a tour. Jim Weidman was he actually hosted our event, and he was like, "I'm going to steal that. I know exactly who's going to lead that tour here." And he started like a couple weeks later. He claims that it's one of the best things. So we actually teach that in one of our courses as part of Ministry Boost. It's called the Volunteer Pipeline. And it's a greater part of some of our other courses as well. If you're not familiar with Ministry Boost, maybe you've gotten emails from us before. One of the things that we have is we've got over 50 different resources, from bundles to webinars to courses that you get access to all those things through our membership. $27 for an individual, $47 a month for your entire staff team, whether it's 2 people or 100 people. And you have access to all those sorts of things, like the volunteer pipeline, that tour of how you recruit people, even access to this conference. You can get the all access pass that after Friday night at midnight, all the content that you're watching today goes offline. But if you have the all access pass, you have it forever. But as a member, you get access to this conference. You get access to the conference we hosted 2 years ago and all future conferences. So, so we encourage you to check out if you're looking for some additional resources. If we can come alongside you and partner with you, we offer coaching for kids leaders and youth leaders and next gen leaders, typically in January, February. If there's a way that we can come alongside and partner with you, please spend some time on ministryboost.org. Check out what we offer, and we'd love to invite you. We love to. There's a place where you can sign up for a free coaching call, and we'd love to have some time to chat with you, get to know you a little bit better, and see if there's a way that we can come alongside you and help you with that. Nick, Kevin, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's great. I think you knocked it all. We put the link
You did
in the chat, so let's go check it out.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Cool. Well, Nick, are we ready to bring in our next speaker?
Not yet. Let's talk about one of our other partners. This, I think, would be a good window to do that, and then we can bring her on if that's cool.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah. So we are good friends with Ryan Frank. Many of you maybe have been to like the Kids Matter conference, which I know it like sold out and needs like a new space or something like that this past year, right? Which is pretty amazing. But one of the things that they're doing with the Kidman Academy is these master classes that are free, and you can. There's 4 different ones highlighted here, and we just want to show you what some of those are. The true magic of children's ministry. Kenny, would you ever have said that there's magic in children's ministry? And I don't mean like people doing magic, but like, children's ministry doesn't. I mean, there is that, I guess, which but I don't know if
the young people. The young people wouldn't really get that, but back in the old days, back in the 80s and 90s, gospel illusions and gospel magic was actually people went to conferences to learn how to do gospel magic tricks. So for old ministry dogs like me, like when I read that, I'm like, I'm going to learn how to do that. I used to have a fire Bible. You open up the Bible and fire came out, and you can make things.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my! Are you kidding me?
Do you still have this?
Yeah.
You still have?
No,
can we see this tomorrow? On the? Oh man!
I'd pay good money for that.
I know, me too. But that's not what this is. This course is about how it's not magic, which if you've done it for a week, you know that. So this course is all about that. I love that another course is Ryan Frank on getting stuff done, because if you know Ryan personally, you know Ryan gets stuff done. He's one of those people that like seems to accomplish more in a day than most people do in a week. And so there's a 4-part class on that. And then Alex Schuler, Next Level Kidman, Transforming Sundays, and Engaging Parents. I mean, how many people, you can leave a comment in the chat, want to engage parents better? I think it's everybody. Yeah. Like I've never met a church leader in kids or student ministry who doesn't want to engage parents better. And then our friend Ken Botto, who has a breakout, one of the on-demand breakouts, has a masterclass on special needs, disabilities, trauma, and the church. We love Kim. We love what she does, her voice in that world. In fact, we've been talking with her a little bit about like how can we continue to raise the banner for that, help train leaders in some big ways. And so you can check out kidmanacademy.com for those free masterclasses.
Yeah. Kidman Academy has been offering a certificate level education, like a certificate education for like basic children's ministry. If you're new to the world of children's ministry and you have no clue what you're doing, Kidman Academy has been a great option for people to spend a year reading content, books from some of the greats, and learning the things that you probably didn't pick up, just from watching and looking around. And so it's a great organization. Ryan Frank's always been committed to helping equip the next generation of children's ministry leaders. And these master classes is a great, like, dip your toe into the world of Kidman Academy. And we're super grateful to Ryan's partnership. Ryan and I go way back. I met him 20 years ago when I was a kids pastor in Indiana, and he invited me to come speak to his kids at his camp up in middle Indiana. So he's been in it for a long time too. So he's a good guy, and we're super grateful to have him support this conference.
We use that to train interns and residents too. It's a good, if you've got an internship program and a residency program, it's a great resource for them to kind of do on their own, and training and stuff like that. So it's great. It's good stuff.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, we're really excited about our next guest. This actually, I didn't meet this next guest that we have until uh, almost a year ago. She was just starting to pop up on our radar with a podcast and with her Instagram. And then, Nick, I think you and I both met her for the first time at CPC, the Children's Pastors Conference in Orlando last year. Let us know if anyone's coming to CPC again this year. I think we'll all be there again this next year. But this is Lauren. Lauren leads Children's Ministry Circle. She's kind of pops up all over the place: podcast, YouTube, Instagram, all the places. I think, I don't know. Are you on TikTok too yet? Have you made it to the TikTok land yet? No, not yet.
Kenny could watch. Kenny would see because he's on TikTok. He's like, I say, he's like a teenager. He's there.
I am, and I don't feel like the children's ministry world has entered into TikTok yet. So I'm kind of waiting. Right now, I just look for good recipes and how to fix things in my house that I don't know how to fix. That's my TikTok. Very boring TikTok search view history. But Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your crazy journey these last couple of years to, like, you've truly become a voice of inspiration and help and training for children's ministry leaders. And I know this even expanded recently in the student ministry as well, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Thank you for those kind words. That's very sweet. So I've been in the kids ministry world for about 15 years. Shane's talk was super relevant because I started serving in kids ministry as a student, and that's where my love for the ministry began to grow. And so kind of coming off of my college years and high school years and then into my career, I've been on staff at a handful of different churches, everywhere from a church plant to a multi-site to a mega church. I feel like I've been in a handful of different environments, which is super fun and brings a lot of interesting experiences. And then my husband is also in ministry. And so we kind of have gone back and forth of being on staff at a handful of churches. And kind of when we recently moved to Colorado from Texas, kind of back to our home base. Sorry to all you Texas people out there. We just couldn't hang in the state of Texas. And that's where the idea for Kids Ministry Circle kind of came about, of what does it look like to build a community for leaders to find friends. Coming out of the COVID season, I interacted with a lot of leaders who were just lonely and felt isolated, didn't feel equipped, didn't feel resourced. And so Kids Ministry Circle started as a place for people just to feel less alone, to come and get ideas and be encouraged and be equipped and just be able to realize, oh, they're also struggling with volunteers. I thought I was the only one. And realize that there's other people who are experiencing a lot of the same things in ministry. So that's kind of how Kids Ministry Circle came to be. We run seasonal cohorts where 20 to 25 leaders journey together for 9 weeks. We have one-on-one coaching. We've got the podcast. We've got some fun stuff on YouTube. So those are the areas where you can find us.
That's awesome. We Kenny and I joke that, what did we say? You're like you're an Instagram influencer in the kids ministry space. That's goals, because we're
some goals
because we're so bad at it. Okay, like if it ever looks good with Ministry Boost, it's because it's not us doing it, because we're pretty terrible at that.
Yeah,
even though Kenny's on TikTok like all the young folks.
I literally just posted about this conference for the first time this morning. That's how great I'm doing.
Yeah, and I don't think I did at all on my personal account. So there we go. We're winning. #winning. We got to learn from Lauren. But that's not what we're going to learn from Lauren today, right? You're going to help us with leading volunteers, with humility, coming from some of your experience in different churches you're in. So real quick, tell us, like you said, you worked for different churches, different sizes. What was it like starting out leading when you were 23? 24, 22, whatever age you were, and you got leaders that people have been there longer at the church than you've been alive. Like a lot of us have been there. What was that like?
Yeah, so I actually took my first kids director role at 21. I was like fresh out of college, had no idea what I was doing. And I took this job, and within the first 2 weeks of my job, they were like, hey, welcome to the team. You're now going to help us launch a second location, and now you're going to be over 2 campuses. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. Let's like figure out how that's going to work because I've never done that before. And so just this idea of coming into a new role, all of my volunteers had been there significantly longer than I had. I had not been a part of the church beforehand, so I was learning the culture of the church while also getting to know all the kids and families and volunteers. And not to mention, I was also single at the time. I wasn't married. And so that, for those of you who are single leaders, that brings another layer to just your ministry leadership, kind of not ability, but maybe how people often view you as a leader. And so I really had to learn of what does this look like for me to walk in confidence while also realizing that I'm not going to be the one with all the answers all the time. And so that's kind of how this idea really came to be of I can trust that God has put me in this place for this specific time, and I can also know that I can't do it alone. That's why you have volunteers. That's why you have people on your team to sit in a room and say, I don't know how we're going to launch this campus. I don't know what we're going to do for Christmas. I don't necessarily know what we're going to do about this certain situation. So let's talk about it and let's work together. And I think that's okay as the leader to come from a place.
Can you hear? I feel like I can't hear now. Can you hear, Kenny?
Did we just lose some audio? Lauren, are you still there?
No. Can we hear you, Lauren?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Okay, great.
I thought it went quiet on
like-
my end just for a moment.
Just for a moment.
Okay. Sorry about that. Might have cut you off a little bit there at the end. What were you saying right at the end that we missed?
Well, I was talking about how oftentimes kids ministry leaders or student ministry leaders kind of create this front or this idea that they have to have it together all the time. Like they have to have all the ducks in a row, all the pieces together, know exactly what they're doing. And sometimes it's okay to walk in humility and walk in faith. So that's what I was saying.
Yeah, there's definitely, I'm just now stepping out. I've been a volunteer at my church I've been attending for a year. I've been a volunteer for about 6 months, and I just recently started interim leading and super excited about that. And there's always this like humbling moment of there are volunteers there that have been serving for, a decade, and they'll probably be serving for a decade after I'm gone. And there is like a certain realization of having of that, we step in a very temporal space of like, we may have great experience and great knowledge. We got a degree or something like that, but there is something about really truly valuing the legacy of what some of these other volunteers have brought. And even though like